You step off the plane in one of the cleanest cities on Earth. No trash on the ground, no graffiti on the walls. The subway looks like it's been polished for a photo shoot. You buy a drink, look around, and suddenly remember, wait, is this the place where chewing gum is illegal? You reach into your bag, feel a stick of gum, and for a split second you're like, am I committing a crime right now? Are there gum police watching me? It sounds insane. A whole country that basically bans chewing gum. No way, right? Who wakes up and says, you know what will fix society? No more gum. But in Singapore, that one rule became world famous. People joke about it, tourists whisper about it, and the whole thing feels like some crazy urban legend. Today we're going to dig into the truth. Why did Singapore go to war with chewing gum? Is gum really totally illegal? How does this one weird rule connect to public toilets, spitting, smoking, and even caning? And most importantly, did banning gum actually help keep Singapore insanely clean, or is it just a symbol that everyone remembers because it's so weird? If you love strange laws, bizarre traditions, and mind-blowing hidden facts from around the world, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. There are a lot more secrets like this, and you seriously don't want to miss them. All right, take that gum out of your mouth for a minute. Let's find out why Singapore said, no more chewing. Picture Singapore in the late 1980s. This tiny country has huge ambitions. It wants to be a clean, efficient, modern city that feels like the future. They're building a brand new subway system, the MRT, shiny stations, new trains, automatic doors, the works. It's the pride of the nation. And then, people start being people. Some passengers take their chewing gum, finish the flavor, and instead of throwing it in the bin, they stick it in the worst places possible. On train doors, on sensors, on elevator buttons, inside keyholes. Every now and then, someone decides it would be funny to jam the MRT doors by sticking gum on the rubber seals and sensors. Doors can't close properly. Trains get delayed. Cleaning teams have to come in and scrape up disgusting blobs stuck in tiny gaps. In most countries, that's just, ugh, people are gross. In Singapore, that's, how do we eliminate this problem permanently? By 1992, the government decides enough is enough. The answer they come up with is brutal and simple. Ban the sale and import of chewing gum. Not please throw it away properly. Not small fine if you litter. Just, you know what? We're done with this. No more gum sold here at all. Overnight, shops can't order new gum. Existing stocks disappear. Customs officers start treating chewing gum like a controlled product. And from that moment, Singapore becomes that country where gum is illegal in every travel article and every bar conversation on Earth. But here's where it gets mind-blowing. Most people think chewing gum itself is illegal. Like, you chew a piece on the street and boom, handcuffed. That's not actually how it works. The main target of the law is the sale and import of gum. You're not going to jail just for chewing. The problem is getting the gum in the first place. For years, it was basically impossible to legally buy gum in Singapore at all. You couldn't walk into a supermarket or a 7-Eleven and grab a pack of mint gum. So what about tourists? Could you bring some gum in your bag for personal use? In practice, customs isn't going to freak out over a couple of sticks in your pocket. The focus is on people trying to import or sell gum in bulk. If you rock up with a suitcase full of gum to resell, that's when things get serious. And don't even think about spitting it onto the ground or sticking it under a seat. That's where big fines can come in because now you're breaking littering and cleanliness laws, not just gum rules. So the reality is, Singapore doesn't hate the act of chewing. It hates what people do with gum after they're done chewing it. But the story doesn't stop there. Because then, America gets involved. Fast forward to the early 2000s. Singapore is negotiating a free trade agreement with the United States. American companies, especially big pharmaceutical and gum manufacturers, are very interested. One of them makes nicotine gum to help people quit smoking. Their argument is simple. Chewing gum can have health benefits. What about dental gum? What about nicotine gum? This isn't candy, this is medicine. Singapore listens. The country still wants to protect its trains and sidewalks from sticky disasters, but it also wants good trade relations and some flexibility. So in 2004, the rules soften a bit. Singapore keeps the general ban on selling normal chewing gum, but allows a special category: therapeutic, dental, and nicotine gums. There's a catch, of course. You can't just sell them like candy at the checkout. You have to buy them from a pharmacist or a doctor. Staff have to record some details. These gums are treated more like medicine than snacks. So you now have this very Singapore solution. Gum is banned, unless it serves an official health purpose and is controlled like a drug. The MRT doors stay clean. The sidewalks stay spotless. And Singapore gets to say, look, we're not crazy. We allow gum, but only the responsible medical kind. It's weird. It's strict. But if you look at it from their point of view, it's also very efficient. Now here's the real secret. The gum ban isn't just a random one-off rule. It's part of a whole ecosystem of laws designed to keep the city clean and orderly. Gum is just the famous one. Behind it, there's an entire army of rules. Let's talk about littering. In a lot of countries, littering is technically illegal, but most people know the chance of getting caught is tiny. You drop something, you walk away, nobody says anything. In Singapore, that's not how it works. If you're caught littering, you can get hit with a pretty painful fine, even for something as small as a candy wrapper or a cigarette butt. For many first-time cases, there's a standard on-the-spot fine. If you push it and end up in court, the maximum fines jump up, and repeat offenders can face much bigger amounts. And then there's something very Singapore-style: the corrective work order. If you're a serious or repeat litter bug, the court can sentence you to go out in public wearing a vest and clean up litter, picking up trash, sweeping, doing the kind of cleaning work people usually ignore. Imagine that. You throw a rubber band on the ground. You get caught. Next thing you know, you're back in the same neighborhood in a bright vest, picking up garbage while everyone walks past. It's embarrassing, it's uncomfortable, and that is exactly the point. Singapore doesn't just want to punish you with money. It wants to change your behavior and maybe scare a few onlookers into thinking, yeah, I'm not throwing anything on the ground here. Now, let's go from your hands to your mouth, because Singapore has strong opinions on what comes out of it too. Spitting in public? That's a big no. In many cities, people spit on the sidewalk all the time. It's gross but common. In Singapore, spitting in public places can get you fined. There are specific regulations that ban spitting on streets, in markets, in buses, and in places open to the public. It's not just, please don't be disgusting. It's written into the rules. There are real cases of visitors getting fined hundreds of dollars just for spitting. It sounds extreme, but again, the logic is simple. No spit on the ground means fewer germs, cleaner streets, and a better environment for everyone. And yes, people absolutely learn the lesson fast when their saliva suddenly costs them that much money. Now let's walk into a public restroom. You go in, you use the toilet, you wash your hands, and you forget to flush. In most countries, that's just rude. In Singapore, that's illegal. There is an actual rule that says if you use a public toilet with a flush system, you must flush it. If you don't, you can be fined. Authorities are allowed to do random checks on public toilets. Stories have been told for years about officers waiting outside stalls to check whether people flushed. It almost sounds like a comedy sketch, until you realize they're serious. The maximum fine can go up into the hundreds of dollars, and just like with littering and spitting, the goal is not to punish one person forever. It's to make sure everyone thinks twice before leaving a mess. Singapore wants its public toilets to be as clean as possible, because millions of people pass through them every year. So they turned basic manners, flush, please, into law. All right, now we step outside again and take a deep breath. Or try to. Smoking is another big target in Singapore's cleanliness and health campaign. Over time, the list of places where you can't smoke has exploded. Indoor public areas, shopping malls, public transport, many outdoor spaces like parks, certain beaches, and whole zones like Orchard Road, the famous shopping district. If you light up in a no-smoking area and get caught, you can face a fine. There's a standard composition fine, often a couple of $100s. And if your case ends up in court, the maximum can be even higher. Recently, more parks and recreational areas have been declared smoke-free, with no smoking by law signs and officers specifically watching for violations. So in Singapore, smoking isn't just a personal habit. It's a tightly controlled activity that has to stay inside little designated smoking boxes or specific areas. Step outside that line and your cigarette becomes very expensive. By now, you can probably feel the pattern. This is a country that takes public space very seriously. Sidewalks, trains, toilets, parks. These aren't just places where people pass through. They're part of a carefully curated environment, and the chewing gum ban fits perfectly into this mindset. Gum is messy. Mess costs money, so they redesigned the rules around it. But there's one more piece of the puzzle we need to talk about because it's part of Singapore's global reputation: punishment. You've probably heard about caning in Singapore. It's real, and it's used for certain crimes like serious vandalism, some violent offenses, and other specific acts. Back in the 1990s, the world was shocked when an American teenager, Michael Fay, was sentenced to caning for vandalizing cars with spray paint. That case made huge headlines and turned people's attention to just how tough Singapore can be on public order crimes. Vandalism in Singapore isn't just don't scratch a wall. There's a specific law that allows harsh penalties, including caning for certain serious acts of vandalism involving permanent damage. More recently, Singapore has updated some of these rules, reducing mandatory caning for vandalism in some situations, but adding it for other crimes like major scams. The details change over time, but the basic message stays the same. If you damage public property or break serious public order laws, the consequences can be very painful, in every sense. So how does all of this tie back to gum? Chewing gum became a kind of symbol of everything Singapore wants to avoid. Sticky, messy, hard-to-clean trash that people just leave everywhere because they can. You can imagine the thinking: if people don't take responsibility for their gum, then the city will take responsibility for the gum itself. Remove the product. Remove the problem. Sure, it sounds extreme, but look around Singapore today, and you see almost no gum on sidewalks, no black dots on the pavement, no random blobs stuck under benches. Compare that to some big cities where every step on the sidewalk is like walking on a sticky battlefield. Of course, the real story is bigger than just gum. It's about a culture of enforcement. Singapore has strict littering fines and public cleaning orders, rules against spitting and failing to flush, smoking bans in tons of places, serious penalties for vandalism, and on top of that, a strong social attitude. People expect public spaces to be clean, and they usually support tough rules that keep them that way. Is it perfect? No. Are there critics who say it's too strict, too controlling, too nanny state? Absolutely. But if you ask, how did Singapore become one of the cleanest cities in the world? The honest answer is strict laws, serious enforcement, and yes, a chewing gum ban that the whole planet still can't stop talking about. So let's imagine you, right now, visiting Singapore with everything you've just learned. You land at the airport, you have a few sticks of gum in your bag, fine, as long as it's just for you and you're not trying to sell them. You ride the MRT, notice how spotless it is, and suddenly the gum ban feels a little less crazy. You throw your trash into a bin, not on the ground, because that 300 Singapore dollars fine does not sound fun. You resist the urge to spit or drop anything, you definitely flush, and you hunt for a designated area before you light a cigarette. At some point, maybe on a perfectly clean street late at night, you think, this place is so strict, but that's also why it looks like this. And that's the tension at the heart of Singapore. Freedom versus order, personal habits versus public space, tiny sticky pieces of gum versus billion-dollar infrastructure. Did banning gum save the city? Not by itself. But it became the most famous piece of a much larger strategy. Control the small things, and the big picture stays beautiful. So the next time someone jokes, Singapore is the country where you get executed for chewing gum, you'll know the truth. You don't get arrested for chewing. You get in trouble for what you do with it, and for trying to bring it in or sell it like normal candy. It's not about hating gum, about hating. It's about loving clean streets and trains so much that they rewrote the rules of everyday life. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the world's weirdest and most misunderstood laws, hit like, drop a comment with the strictest law you've ever heard of, and subscribe with notifications on so you don't miss our next journey into global strangeness. Because the world is way weirder than you think. See you in the next hidden line.